So far, we've always organized the Open Access Week with the speakers from Croatia because we try to somehow a bit spread the word about who are the people doing things related to open science in Croatia. But I'm also realizing that actually there's so much more we could bring to Croatia by inviting foreign speakers. So I'm happy that actually this year Isabel and Pablo joined us from Research Agora, who will today present basically their initiative that they do to try to basically reduce the research waste and increase the amount of things that researchers can actually publish. So all the small little works, negative results, tests that they do that are not good enough for maybe BB publications, but are valuable research output and would be useful to be accessible to other researchers as well. So they designed a platform called Research Agora and format of publication called Marbles. So I'll present it today. But before that, just a brief introduction into the Udruga Penkala, so Association Penkala. Um, Slides should be changing. So yeah, this is in Croatian, unfortunately, because we're not yet ready to have everything in English, but hopefully soon. So yeah, we're an association who kind of gathers together the PhD students, researchers, postdoctoral researchers, in general, young researchers mainly focus on, and also a bit industry and startups. The idea is it started as a networking. Basically, we wanted to make people know who are other researchers and young people doing research in Croatia. What do they do? Not only in Croatia, but also in abroad. Um, we became also the representative of Croatian young researchers in Eurodoc last year. And Eurodoc is European Association of Doctoral Candidates, I think. And yeah, we are trying to be some kind of basically networking between all those actors. Uh, Related to our goals, as I said, networking was something that was initial thing. Then we started doing more education as well, opportunities, organizing different events for young researchers, and also popularization activities. And at the same time, there is one branch that we are trying to also popularize more entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial thinking and opportunities for researchers to go more in that direction. And we have a lot of different things we do from the blog, live events, podcast that we started already 4 or 5 years ago. Multimedia is our yearly kind of conference that this year will be 10th year, basically, so 10 year since we exist. This was Nanos to Prolazu is event that actually now became a separate association that's for promoting basically women in science and science popularization. Uh, just please mute yourself, whoever is not muted. Okay. Um, and then we have different yeah, workshops and discussions and opportunities related really to kind of working in academia, what are the challenges, and so on. One of the recent things that we started also doing is kind of working on mapping Croatian researchers outside of Croatia. So we created a platform for mapping Croatian researchers outside of Croatia. Then it evolved into two other kind of sub projects. One was we created a guide for a measure called znanstveni povratnik, so how the Croatian researchers working abroad can return to Croatia to scientific positions. And at the same time, we started a big research with the Institute for Migration Research about really Croatian scientific diaspora abroad and what are the motivations and challenges, and the kind of collecting data is finished now. We collected more than 500 responses, and now we are basically analyzing the results. And another project that's more related to the open science is we also started a research about open science perspectives and attitudes of Croatian researchers related to open science. The also collection phase of the responses for the survey was finished in June, I think. We presented some preliminary results last month in a public conference in Zagreb, and we are now also analyzing basically the results. But yeah, so we are organizing this Open Access Week third year now in a row. There will be in-person event next week, unfortunately not this week, with 4 talks. And then this week we have today, starting with Isabel and Pablo, as I mentioned, Research Agora, and then tomorrow also at 12 about what it means to be a data steward by Diana Caric, and then the Friday, why do we need to pre-register our research? What are the benefits and how to do it by Ivan Buljan from Split. So yeah, this is from me, and now I invite Isabel and Pablo, please, to you can share your screen and start the presentation.
Yeah. I will share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Is it visible and full screen?
Yeah, I see it. It's good.
All right, so I'll let Paulo start.
Yep. First of all, thank you for the invitation and thank you for all of you who attended. It's great to see that you guys showed up and are interested in seeing what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve with Research Agora. And we've titled this From Full Hard Drives to Full CDs, making every result count. But before that, I want to start by introducing. We're both, Pablo and Isabel, former researchers, different fields. I was a former researcher in immunology and stem cells, and Isabel in neuroscience. And we've been basically just working in different institutes in different countries and among all quite similar problems in our research and in the research of our colleagues. But the reality is that beyond this, we belong to a very sad percentage of researchers, which is that 50% of researchers that abandon academia within the first 10 to 15 years of their career. And we've been trying to hypothesize why is this, and I'm going to give you just my personal example because I think it's better to give what we are familiar with as an example than others. This is an example. These are my files from one of my projects in my PhD that ended up published. And the volume of data that was published is represented as that tip of the iceberg, those 5 gigabytes that you can see on the top. But in the reality behind this project, there was way, way more generated, way more knowledge that right now is completely unknown. So the total data that we generated was approximately 1 terabyte. And that's 1 terabyte of information that is completely invisible. So that led me to dig a little bit deeper. And we realized that this terabyte of data had a name, academically speaking, and that's research waste. And I realized that I was not the only one having this issue. And in fact, 85% of the knowledge that is generated worldwide and the investment that is associated to that 85% goes to the bin, goes to waste. And it's never used, never seen, because it just doesn't fit an editorial line of publishing, or it doesn't fit a patent or any of the other different ways that exist right now of publication. And on the other hand, we had something quite striking as well, which is that 60% of published articles right now are non-reproducible. So that made us think a lot on whether we were doing something wrong in research if we were not showing all our knowledge, and the one that we were showing was a little bit biased towards, let's say, clickbait, a little bit, let's say it like that. And we realized that one of the potential reasons behind this was that success in academic research is strongly dependent on publication count and journal impact factor, which basically translated to a briefer sentence just means that we only care about articles and papers, and all the remaining doesn't count. And when I say we, I don't mean researchers, but the people evaluating researchers. But fortunately, there is a little bit of hope at the end of the tunnel. and a little bit of light, because researchers are demanding a change, and that is something that we all know, or should know at least. There are association of researchers raising their voice. Among them, the most popular these days are Dora and Koara. But what's important, I think, to mention is that finally the European Union and the European Commission are listening. So they are trying to change how research assessment is done. And they mean to do it by ensuring that quality is assessed over quantity, and that there's a diversity of outputs beyond the traditional paper. But the problem is that right now there are no effective tools to really implement these things. There's no recognition examples that we can compare to and see how this works. And there's definitely less awareness that there should. There's less researchers knowing that this is going to become a fact and not just theory. And that's basically where we decided that, we needed to do something, but we actually needed to do it without burdening researchers with more work. As it is, researchers have plenty of things to do, and thinking of extra work is just not realistic. And we decided to go back to research waste and, make the most of that work that was already being done, but not visible and not seen. So this is the academic definition of what research waste is, but I find it quite cold. I find it quite not personal, and I like to think of research waste as the time that researchers across the globe spend doing experiments that do not see the light, or repeating experiments that other people have done, or doing experiments that just do not fit that publishing way. So again, this is very theoretical. This is how research waste has been defined in different clusters. But what we want to focus on is in the second one, in invisible waste, all that unpublished research and data, because we believe that by making it visible, all the other ones are going to be attenuated as well as a consequence. And with this, I'm going to skip to what we propose. And for that, we have Isa that is going to do it way better than I can.
Okay, so what Research Agora was born about is essentially this. Oops, sorry, I okay, there you go. I couldn't go to the next slide. So we started Research Agora, trying to solve this research waste issue, and what we try to do right now is to convert these unpublishable results that Paulo was mentioning, this unseen knowledge, into recognized scientific contributions through our collaborative environment. So we propose a new type of publication, which is called Marbles, which consists of short peer-reviewed and open access reports that are linked to already published articles. So it is not that Marbles are another article type. It's a new way to recognize this contribution. So Marbles don't are not like current research articles. They essentially complement those that are already published, and they can be of 5 different types. One type of marble would be based on an article that is already published, that does not need to be your own. And essentially what these marbles report are replications, failed replications, or alternative methods related to the experiments from this article that is linked. The other part, the other type of marbles that you can publish are those exploratory hypotheses or negative results that are based on already published literature, but that are not completely finished stories. So these are the 5 types of marbles. And if I can give you a visual example of what we mean by marbles, if we imagine that an article is a recipe for a cake, and each step of the recipe is one figure. Let's imagine that figure 4 is about making whipped cream. Okay, marbles can be this way. So a replicate marble would be that you follow the same recipe as in the article, and then you get the whipped cream as it is reported. A flag would be following the same recipe, but not getting the whipped cream. A confirmation marble would be that you follow a different recipe, but end up having the same results. So you end up having whipped cream. And then for build on and negative results, let's imagine that you think, oh, maybe I can use this whipped cream to make macaron. And then in the case of build on, you would succeed. In the case of negative results of the dents, you would not, essentially. So what we want to do with these marbles is to take this 85% of research waste that Paolo was mentioning and then use it to assess the quality and impact of already published articles so that we have a more complete picture of the research that is reported in this article, and that we can also somehow reduce this 60% of non-reproducible research. We add a reproducibility layer to published research. So how does it work? So right now you can explore our website. You can just go to researchagora.com and then click on submit a marble and then select the type of marble that you want to publish. And then you just fill out a quick submission form, which importantly includes the DOI of the article that marble is linked to and the figure numbers that it relates to. And then it's essentially a short text about the methods and results, just one figure, and that's it. So we wanted to make it as easy and streamlined as possible for you, so that we can recognize that work, but it doesn't require you to invest a lot of time. And one of the important things is that we encourage to share the data and code, of course, of these marbles too. After authors submit the marble, then we select 3 reviewers from our reviewer community, which you can also sign up for. And then this peer review is conducted as usual, with the only difference that in this case, the marble authors are not known for their reviewers. So we try to reduce as much as possible any bias that might arise from knowing the identity of authors. And once these reviewers approve the publication of the marble, then we will publish the report with the peer review reports and peer reviewer identities linked and linked to the original article that it relates to, so that it is somehow organized. So this is how a marble looks. You can check it in our website and explore it calmly. But as you see on the right side, it includes the linked article information. And then it is, as you see, a short report. And then the peer review includes the names of the reviewers and then the review comments. These comments and the identities of the reviewers are not linked to promote transparency, but also not compromise any bias that might arise from like fear of retaliation or any conflict of interest. And then we also we can show you also how the linked article looks. So on the right side, you can see that it includes metrics on how much of the article is replicated, how many hypotheses have arose from that article, and then our list of all the marbles that are also associated to this article. So you can have now reproducibility and impact metrics on those published research. Our final objective is to achieve a multifaceted researcher profile that goes beyond the traditional publication, that goes beyond these publication counts, and that it takes into account peer review work, reproducibility work, um, contributions to open science, and like early sharing and negative results, so that everything that you do, every part of your work is recognized and can be used um, for assessment. Right now, supporting Research Agora, we have a reviewer community that is in about 14 countries. I think right now it's even more. You can also sign up, and we actually encourage early career researchers to sign up, um, as we believe that their expertise is also useful and should be recognized. We also are currently reviewing our first Marvel that is from Dr. Simon Haas. And then we started also our first institutional collaboration with Dr. Eva Mendez, who is the director of Open Science Lab and the main voice on open science and reproducibility in Spain. So what you can do as researchers is to sign up as a reviewer, as I mentioned, and think of submitting a Marvel. If you have any questions, you can always contact us, of course. And of course, spread the word. And we want to thank also Penkala. I'm not sure I pronounced it correctly, but thank you for inviting us to give this talk. And I just wanted to open the floor to hear what you think, because this is one solution that we propose. But essentially, what we want to know is which outputs you think are should be recognized, which part of your work should be used for research assessment. And it doesn't need to be now. You can also scan the QR and fill out this feedback form with any concerns, ideas, questions you have. Yeah, and with that, I wanted to thank you and give the floor to Pablo, so we can also comment these questions.
Sure. So from my just last words from my side, of course, we are open to any comment or suggestion from what we have been talking about, but we're more than happy to discuss beyond what your thoughts are regarding research assessment, but also open science, which, and open access, which is the scope of this week, I guess. So we welcome any sort of topic, but this is just food for thought, whether there is any non-traditional output that you think that should be recognized, whether there should be incentive tools, sorry for the typo, and policies that can foster this adoption and improve the equity and transparency of novel assessment or output policies that should be out there, whether digital platforms, especially now in the digital era, can play a role in all this transition, and of course, ways of reducing bias, and whether, how can we avoid publication bias and ensure, of course, fair assessment as much as possible. So yeah, we want to open the floor, not just for me or Isa now, but to all of you, and welcome any sort of comment, question regarding Research Agora or any of these topics.
If there is a question from anyone, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask. I can maybe ask the first one, which is, so you said every submission has to be linked to some already published articles, and it's DOI. So why is that so? So does it mean you cannot, for example, publish, let's say, results of some master student results that maybe is not related to previous published work, or, for example, you have some results that you want to publish already, but you haven't yet published the full, research, for example, you just want to put it somewhere and still while you still have remember all the details, but then the big publication comes maybe later, so you would only have the link DOI later, for example.
Mhm. Yeah, so actually, so in that case that you mentioned, in the case of wanting to publish some master's researcher work or something like this, what you could do is to publish it as build on or dead end mark, which is not um, it's a new hypothesis that you are testing. It's just that the linked article should be, let's say, the previous literature you base that research on.
Okay.
But
But what do you
this
put then in this field? Because I think it was obligatory field to
yeah.
put the DOI.
This being said, I think it's important to distinguish whether that master's or that person's work is going to be fitting into a bigger story that is going to be aimed to be published as a paper, which kind of links a little bit with the second part that you were mentioning about having that sort of internal repository until you make that publication. In this case, I think it's Research Agora doesn't fit exactly the standard, but actually pre-registration would. Because once this gets published, it gets like a marble gets DOI, meaning that it doesn't, it becomes immediately not novel and hence not publishable as a independent journal, because that would be duplicity of results as
Mhm.
different outputs, if that makes sense. However, if the student or whichever work is not going to be, the intention is not to pursue further that project and not generate more data to publish as an article, then it's when we definitely believe that there's a fit in Research Agora to publish this work there. Um, the reason to just have one DOI is because one other reason and problem that we haven't talked about is the always increasing sea of literature that is out there. And what we wanted to do is to have publications being built in a modular format that makes it simpler and not more complex. So not generating more noise, but rather having everything compiled and easy to navigate. Now, whether you want to choose to which DOI you want to link your work to, that very much depends. But I think it's difficult to think of any sort of knowledge not being based on something previously. Importantly, it's not necessarily that it needs to be your own work or your own laboratory work. It can be work from anyone in the world so that it becomes something collaboratively. So let's say that your master student is, or a master student is doing some work based on an exploratory finding that you want to see if you want to pursue further later on. That person is probably basing that hypothesis on something that's published out there, and that should be the DOI that it's linked to. But again, if the idea is to continue with that study until you make a proper, let's say, traditional paper, then Research Agora wouldn't be your place, because this would be counted as a final outcome, scientific outcome, and duplicating experimental results in different outcomes is considered scientific fraud and so on.
Okay. But then, what do you do actually with this information about linked DOI? If, like, for example, you have, yeah, multiple, um, like articles that inspired you, you will have to pick one, or, yeah, I don't know, it's you pick one, but it's not really maybe ideal. And what do you do with that information of the DOI that you actually link to? So, like, I just wonder because if you put the wrong one, what's the consequence? Or if you don't put an ideal one, what's the consequence? Or can you actually change it later in case you, for example, actually, want to link it to maybe your publication that's actually more, uh, to the main publication of your project that maybe comes later. So it's like, just how do you use this information of the link DOI?
Um, so, I mean, now we have it in a way that you can only link it to one paper. But of course, like if you have any like doubts on which paper to use to link, you can always like talk to us directly. We can check. Um, in it is also, there is also the possibility of linking it to uh, to the OIs. Um, but we don't want to like create a bigger um, like network of of papers, because that would also make it a bit more complicated to navigate, let's say. So I mean, normally um, you couldn't change the DOI after the marble is published. You can do it during the revision process, but not after it's published.
However,
Well,
citations are always more than welcome. So that like DOI is not the only work that you can cite. So citing works exactly the same as for any other manuscript, and
mhm.
that part is absolutely visible and transparent. We just chose that one again, as Isa was mentioning, to make it easier to navigate and to really, um, find a one-to-one link on the sort of work that was inspiring. So that DOI is basically used for that little gift that you saw where the statistics were shown regarding to one
Mhm.
particular paper. So that's why we have one, because that allows us to see how many hypotheses have been built around this paper, how many experiments have been replicated from from this
Okay.
paper. So that's why we're using that DOI basically to basically match the
Yeah,
new
yeah.
work that is being published to the already published one.
Okay. Okay, I see. Thanks. Is there anyone else with the comments or questions? Related to the data that you mentioned, so do you support uploading in the end some data, or it has to be done through external repositories that then you just reference in your Marble submission?
Yeah, currently we have it. So you have to use external repositories like Zenodo or any external repositories.
Okay. Okay.
For
Okay.
smaller data sets, we support it, but for bigger ones,
Mm.
it becomes a bit challenging to host everything on the same place. And we believe it's better practice actually to have it in these sort of open access repositories than to build yet another repository. But for smaller pieces of data, we for sure have the space and the capacity to upload it. And it's actually one of the fields of the form. If you want to upload it, you can do it.
Mhm. And one last thing, so I think I saw it, but I don't know if you mentioned it enough, or maybe here is the system of rewarding for the reviewers.
Mhm.
So
Ah,
how
yeah.
does it work? And yeah, maybe just a bit about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is that reviews can be done um, as a sole author or collaboratively. So reviews can be signed by several authors. And then after the review is done, um, we will publish the names of those authors uh, so that they have a recognition for their work. But also we will give them tokens. Essentially, what that means is that they can use these tokens to publish their marbles free of charge. So right now, if you review one marble, then you will publish. You can publish for free, essentially. Even though right now everything is free, like we are launching the platform, we want to also know what researchers think about this. So now publishing is free for everyone, but of course this cannot be supported forever because um, our funding is very limited. Um, so in the future, reviewers will get this advantage, let's say.
And what was intended price for later the publishing the marbles? Like, is this something on the level of the APCs or much smaller? I mean,
Yeah, so it would be APCs, but since these are also smaller reports, we we have set a price of 250 euros per marble. Um, but as I said, right now it's completely free to publish and free to read. It will be open for everyone.
so I guess then, is there any question? I mean, if you did not understand certain concept or something, you can also feel free to ask. Uh, yeah, or just feedback. Anything
Mhm.
is welcome.
Yeah, let me go back to the slide with the feedback form in case you think of something later. You can always write to us.
And we are going to have another talk by Isabel and Pablo in like 1 hour. So if you want to
Mm.
repeat the talk,
Yeah.
that would be an option as well.
Yeah. Well, then just one more question. So, what's your kind of biggest challenge that you have faced so far with trying to promote the platform and the whole idea, basically?
Right now, our biggest challenge is to actually get to researchers so that they are aware that we exist.
Hmm.
Once we talked to them, actually, the feedback we got was quite positive. Um, but yeah, I mean, these kind of talks are very useful for us so that researchers know that we exist, essentially. And also, we want to improve the platform based on what researchers think, what is useful for them, because in the end, what we want is to build something that is actually useful for the people that do the research, not only like for us as uh, related to our experience, but also like to take into account everyone's experience and the current issues from researchers.
Yeah, I see. And going through institutions is also not much easier, basically.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
okay,
it is a bit challenging to set up um, these meetings,
I
but
see.
we are starting to do that now.
Yeah. I mean,
And
you're, yeah, in the very beginning, so I guess it's still a lot of kind of positive, and a lot of opportunities. So
yeah,
it's, I mean, it's a good start. Okay. Well, last call for questions. If there is anyone, please say something. Otherwise, thank you everyone for, yeah, being here. And then, yeah, tomorrow again at 12 and on Friday again at 12, we will continue with about the data stewardship and about pre-registration as well. So feel free to join or, yeah, invite colleagues or share information. Thank you, everyone, then.